I want to welcome all of you, women and men, all together today. This is the first panel, How to Lead Like a Woman. I hope you've come prepared, because this is going to be a fast-paced session and very exciting, and we have a lot to cover. And there's going to be a quiz at the end. So, Ansha, pay attention. She's talking over there. Okay. 46% of privately held firms in the U.S. are now at least half owned by women. These companies represent almost 16 million jobs in the United States. Economically, women are the next emerging market. That's third behind India and China as countries. So women are a big deal. Women are a formidable force, and the trends are in our favor. So that's the good news. Being a leader in today's fast-paced environment is a mindset, and we have assembled some heavy-hitting female leaders from across North America to present today, and I'm honored to have all of them here. They will help us gain some insight on how we too can follow in their footsteps. So I'm going to start to my right with Farah Majidzadeh. She's the CEO and chairperson of Resource International, which is based in Columbus, Ohio. Now, her bio is in the book. I don't like to read a bunch of stuff, so please look that up. But what I will tell you about Farah is she's just incredibly amazing. Her company, Resource International, what do? They build bridges, buildings, roads, and water lines, and they do consulting. They also offer construction management, surveys, geotechnical and material engineering services, and much more. Their smallest project runs about $25,000, and their largest goes up to $17 million. Their annual revenues are upward of $27 million. She started the business in her basement with $9.25. So for all of you out there, that deserves a round of applause, absolutely. And she just won't quit. I mean, I think I saw her less than a year ago in New York. We were doing this conference, and in the last couple of months, she's accumulated a whole bunch of awards, including the Smart 50 Awards from Smart Business Magazine, the City of Columbus's top 10 female small business owners, and this Friday she's going to pick up her Lifetime Achievement Award from the Conway Family Center in Ohio. Farah, it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you. So my first question is going to be about, I wonder if I can use this thing. Hello, does this work? No? Okay. My first question is about, how you got started. If you all looked at her bio, you would know that she has a nursing degree. So you have a nursing degree, and now you're running a construction and consulting engineering. Can you tell us about how you got started?
I came to the United States. Well, actually, I went to England for the very, very young age. And when I got my nursing degree, came to the United States, got married, and I didn't really enjoy my family because I couldn't go back. I had my own family, and there was things. But I wanted to be in some kind of a field that my children and everybody works together, that I would get to see them every day. And that is where my idea came from, to pick up a piece of equipment that my husband was doing in the research in Ohio State University and promote that. And that's about 41 years ago. But what it is really, truly, is that the passion and the patience and those things that I got to do this job came from the nursing. Because when you're nursing, especially in England, you're taking care of people that they are really end of their life sometime, and they are going back. Therefore, there's no time for quit. Quitting is the worst thing for any entrepreneur. I think that I have always said it, and I will always use this. I use my successes. I always said, don't congratulate me on my successes. Congratulate me that for failures that I did not quit. Because when you quit, you have given up. And I think Anusha just said it too, because you have so much thing to look forward to. And any businesses has ups and downs. Thank you.
Of course. Next, we have the, thank you. A lady who needs no introduction, Goli Almeri. She's the president and CEO of the Center for Global Engagement, with a mission to foster engagement between U.S. society and the rest of the world, with a view of promoting shared values and increasing mutual understanding and respect. Formerly, she was the Undersecretary for Humanitarian Diplomacy at the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, the world's largest humanitarian organization responsible for global diplomacy. Goli's bio is just incredible, and some of the things that you won't see in her bio are that she has 2 older brothers, and as she calls it, she grew up as a tomboy. She attended the Tehran International School, which I thought was great, because I went to an international school, and that's a wonderful education. And she also has 2 degrees from Stanford in communication and French literature. She's a mother of 2 boys and a great role model. Golijan, it's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
What I find really fascinating about your background is that you've done so many different things in so many different industries. You've run companies in technology, you've done public service, and now you're doing philanthropy. How do you make the switch to a new industry, and what are some of those challenges when you're making that pivot down your career?
So first of all, Shabnam John, thank you so much for moderating this panel. I can't tell you how many hours of work she must have put into this job, because she spent an hour on the phone talking to each and every one of us. So thank you. That really took that job seriously. I also wanted to thank Mariam, Khosravani and her team, who puts on these amazing events year after year that keep getting better, and want to thank all of you for being here today, taking your Sunday morning and getting together and empowering women. So to go back to your question now, there's a recent study that the World Economic Forum released on some of the common attributes between leaders and entrepreneurs. And it's kind of an interesting study that I thought I'd share the results with you. What the study found is that these folks, what they have in common basically is that they really want to do what they've set out to do. For example, they're passionate about the task, but also the fact that they take small steps. And then they stop, they assess where they are and what they've done, and then they take another small step and then another small step. So basically, to summarize, is that they act, they learn, they build, and then they repeat. So to bring this question back to myself, and I'm sure to most of you sitting in the audience, is that everything always starts with small steps. And I think when I look at my career in hindsight, I think I must have always had an interest in public service, in doing the greater good, in giving something back to the community. But it all basically started with these smaller steps. Now, one of the greatest challenges in moving from one industry to another is the steep learning curve. Is that once you think you've learned what you need to know about technology and then you move into government service, you have to learn this from the bottom up. You don't know anything about what it means to serve in the government or in the humanitarian field. So the learning curve is incredibly steep, and certainly I think at least in the last 10 years I felt like I've been drinking from the fire hose nonstop, which obviously involves a lot of work. I used to read a lot actually, and now I don't read anymore because you have to keep reading about what you're doing. But then at the same time, the reward is the level of learning that you have.
Absolutely, thank you. It's very true. I think the key in what you said is taking those small steps and learning from them. So learning from the failures, as you also mentioned, and kind of reiterating that and going back to the drawing board. It's very useful information. Next, last and certainly not least, is Setare Darakhshesh, who, again, doesn't need an introduction. I've got the all-star panel. Setare Jan is an incredible woman. She runs VOA, basically. She's like the head honcho there. She's an award-winning journalist who's been the director of Voice America since January of 2014. Prior to that, she was deputy director, executive editor, and the managing editor of the division. She has played a key role in launching VOA Persian for Iran. She's also served as a lead anchor and managing editor of its flagship news show. Earlier in her career, she worked as an editor, reporter, and on-air talent for the VOA radio broadcasts in Iran. What I find fascinating about Setare is that she was telling me she started the VOA program way back in the day as a half-hour program. And she was an anchor back then. And she's grown this business now to be a 24-hour network with 6 hours of original programming in news, entertainment, yes, youth, cinema. And she's actually the first woman to hold this position at VOA. So I think that really deserves a clap. Setare studied in France, and she's a mother and a role model, and has served as anchor, editor, and now, of course, the first woman to hold this position. Welcome, Setare Jan. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome. So can you tell me, I'm going to go back a little in time, talk to me about who was your first role model, and how did their thinking influence you to be the leader that you are today?
Well, that's an easy one. I think that we all agree that our first role models were our parents, our family, and maybe later on our teachers. But as I grew up, and I think as we all grow up, we see that our role models evolve, and that reflects the changes around us in the world. And I think that is a lesson, an important lesson to learn, that how we need to embrace change, how we need to understand it, how we need to seize these opportunities to be successful. And I will tell you who my role models are now, but I want to give you an example of the media landscape today. We know that television, the business I'm in, and the news business, is key and is king, and is the main component for people to get their international and their national news. But at the same time, we know that right now 50% of Americans get their news from the internet, from small devices. And this gap is becoming larger with young people, people between 18 and 29, and this is based on a Nielsen report. They get about 70% of them, they get their news from the internet and small devices such as this one. So what the people in the industry are doing is that they are looking to find out why and how their audiences are interacting with digital news. So they're moving from traditional media to digital news. These are innovators. These are people with vision. And I think that maybe in the next few years, this small device that I have right now that I use very, very much is going to be as important as a TV platform in our living rooms and on the screen. So for me right now, my role models today are people who are innovators, they have vision, they understand change, they welcome change, they notice it, they grab these opportunities, they adapt to them in their professional areas.
That's great. So are you on Twitter then? Are you on Twitter?
I am not on Twitter, I have to admit.
I caught you now. You have to get on today.
It will come.
Right?
And by the way, I'm not a mother either, but I, salute all mothers.
There you go. Okay, by the way, if you're tweeting, thank you. It's hashtag IAWFLA, so feel free to tweet about our panelists. So we're going to go back to Farah Jan and talk a little bit about her company. She actually runs a 200-man company, which is always a challenge. Hiring, firing, finding the right people. And my question, I run a company too, and I always look up to leaders like her for that $1 million answer, which is, how do you hire, and retain the perfect staff?
My company is most of them, I would say 90% of the people that they work there, they're over 15 to 20, and some of them, they're going 35 years of the things. Become a family. And what I look for it is the person that, in the interview, I'm the last one to come in, but mostly I throw a job. I talk to them about the business of the project that is coming, and I want to look at their reaction, that how interested they are to do that job. After when they're hired, I look at them as family. That means that not only to look at them as what the kind of work they're doing, also what kind of a family, what kind of problem they have. Because that is the most important thing. If the background, they are uncomfortable, if they're coming that they have had a feud or something, they need somewhere to enjoy. The reason that these people, they are with me so many years, they have never, ever walked into there to ask for the raise or anything, because I know that they have to be given raise. During the recession, we were the only firm that I gave every one of them, not only raise, we bought the things, because we really didn't have the recession. You plan it right. Everything has to be planned in the business. And when you have that, you have people that they're following your dreams. Because what is entrepreneur is? Entrepreneur has a vision, brings it into the reality, surround themselves with the people that they see that vision, and they follow that vision. But if I put myself into the box and say, that's all I can do, continuously, even up to 41 years later, we're looking for the niche, that what is the next step? And all the employees, they love that, because that's where they love to do something interesting, not always doing the same thing, because you get tired of it.
That's a good point, giving them new things to do. Yeah. I was recently at a conference with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and someone told me that the CEO of Zappos, anybody use Zappos in here? I use it. It's great. I'm always returning the shoes because my daughter doesn't like them. And it's free return, so I don't know why I'm plugging Zappos right now. That's crazy. But anyway, the CEO of Zappos, this one thing he does when he hires people is the person comes in, they do an interview, and on their way out, he actually throws a piece of garbage on the ground, and he waits to see if the person picks up the garbage and puts it in the trash can. And based on that, he makes his hiring decisions. So for all you entrepreneurs out there who are looking for tricks, that would be a good one. We wanted to ask Goli about all the different industries that you've worked in. I was curious to know which one of them you have found the most difficult to navigate through, perhaps due to gender biases, and what you do when you encounter that.
Before I answer that, may I just say something about Sitara's job? Honestly, her job in Washington is probably one of the most difficult jobs that it exists, because she has a number of bosses that are constantly at each other's throats, namely the U.S. Congress. Republicans say one thing to her, Democrats say one thing to her. The State Department, depending on what kind of administration is in power. The Broadcasting Board of Governors, which is actually her boss, and there's Republicans there and Democrats there, so I don't envy you your job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think you're going for my job. You want to be moderator? You can. You're really good at it.
Sorry, I just had to plug that in.
And you know so much about my job. It is so true what you said. I appreciate it.
Anyway, getting back to the task. So I guess the story behind gender bias goes that, women mostly work in male-dominated environments, and men have formed their own social groupings. They bond with each other. They mentor the younger and the more inexperienced ones, and they've been doing it for so long that it's become intuitive. So I actually would like to challenge this theory And I'd like to challenge it actually from two points of view. Because I think, one, as women, gender bias is no different than any other type of bias. I think as women, we bear the responsibility to command respect. We bear the responsibility to act in a dignified manner. And we bear the responsibility to foster good relations. And I think if we make others feel good about themselves and about who they are, and if we treat them the way we want to be treated, I think the chances of gender bias reduces dramatically. The other angle from which I'd like to challenge this is that women, I think in general, and I know I'm making a very, very general statement, which is usually dangerous, but please allow me a couple of minutes to do that, is that in general, women in the workplace are not each other's best assets. And I think for a lot of you in the audience who have daughters, you've probably often heard of how girls can be mean to each other in school settings. And unfortunately, some women carry this into adulthood and into the workplace. And I think as women, and especially for a gathering like this, I think each and every one of us bears responsibility to make sure that we build a female community in the workplace so that this type of engagements and entanglements that sometimes occur between women in the workplace is dramatically reduced.
Thank you. I love that. I love that answer. That's very true, and I'll touch upon that later in what are some key steps we can all take to change the way that we interact with each other and the way that we pass on that culture to the next generation, which is really the most important thing that we'll do. Now back to Setarejan. I have a question for you about, once again, being a woman, but this time being the first woman running the VOA Persian service. Tell us how you inspire your team and what qualities you look for in a new hire.
Let me tell you a little bit about Voice of America Persian. I will be brief. The Voice of America started broadcasting in Persian in 1942. That is during World War II. And yes, I'm the first woman at the helm of the Voice of America broadcasting into Iran. And it only took 62 years for a woman to take that job. But as there's a proverb, it's the same in English and in Farsi, better late than never. Inspiration comes from, obviously, leadership. I think people look up to you if you know your business. If you also give them possibilities. And what my esteemed panelist was saying, that they never came to you for raises because you were giving them raises. So they need to better their future as you want to do that. Now, what do I look for in a new hire? Let me just go back to what I was talking about in my first answer when I talk about change and how people should adapt to change and how they should seize these opportunities. And I want to mention the elections. The upcoming elections. That's the day after tomorrow. That's Tuesday. We know half of us, hopefully all of us, are going to go to the polls. But what we look for is what are the ways that our audiences, what do they do to follow these election results? This is what my business is about, what the media business is about, which is constantly changing. Apparently 2 years ago, when the same elections, well, the elections happened, 1/3 of the people got their results from television and from the internet simultaneously. These are the things that we look for. Now, you all remember the 2008 presidential campaign, the historic win of President Obama as the first African-American president. But he also was the first presidential candidate to use effectively social media. And Team Obama was smart enough to understand that they could enhance this interaction through cyberspace. They were smart enough to learn things quickly and see that
Traditional media is changing, and they have to adapt, and they have to go for it. They had a very smart strategy. It worked twice. For instance, President Kennedy knew, he was, I think, the president, the American president, who knew more about television than anyone else and what the power of television was. So what I look for and hire is to understand change, to be quick on the job, to be able and willing to learn things fast on the job, and to be willing to go with the vision that we have, for instance, for our division, for our organization.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, change is happening all around us, and that's really difficult to manage, that's for sure. Farjan, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about your business. You had told me last time we were preparing for this interview about your biggest and most important deal, which I was really impressed by. It was a $30 million project in Saudi Arabia. And there's just so many interesting facets of the story that I wanted to bring it up, from the location that it was, the size of the project, to how they sort of dealt with you. So would you mind sharing that story?
Sure. I was working in Kuwait, and apparently Saudi minister had gone to Kuwait and saw that how fantastic Kuwait is. We practically built the Kuwait. And then he approached me that, are you coming to Saudi Arabia? I said, absolutely not, because if I have to cover myself or if I have to sit back of the bus, no way. And if you accept me as I am, and they said, of course, you know, and we went there. They offered me a job for $5 million for 3 years to stay over there and move my family, and I said, absolutely not. And they said, what can we do to keep you in here? But anyway, they came up with this project that calls Highway Maintenance Management Project. It was for the entire country of Saudi Arabia. And also, what it was, actually, 120 firm and 7 countries, they went after this job. And I was the smallest of all of them. And I was actually peanuts of all of them. But anyway, we managed it to joint venture with the Greek and the American, and we went there and we got the job. It was not easy to get the job because, but what it was really for me was satisfaction was that I walked into the Ministry of Saudi Arabia that they had to build a restroom for me because they have never had a woman there. That was, and then also, these guys, they had to listen. And that was a woman that was, you know, it was impressive. But there was lots of problems, to the point that there was war, of course, the first war with Iraq and Kuwait. And then, of course, you know, Saudi Arabia pulled right into it because it's in the middle of it. And then the penalties started things. When you go there and they tell you that you are war, what war? You know, we didn't have war. How do you manage that? I said, well, I didn't know it was your tourist season because all the Americans are in Hilton. All the soldiers, they were there, actually. But we managed it. Everybody told me to quit that job. I was $5 million into the work when we find out one of our American partner that is very large went belly up. Therefore, now what do? I have to go and get somebody else. But then we decided to share the job and manage it, finish it. There was so many problems. But what did I do? If I wanted to cry, if I wanted to scream, I went to the closet, shut the door, did that, came out, and said, I'm going to win this job. And I did it on time. I finished it on time. They're very happy with it. Brought 22 of their people over here, trained them, that I didn't have to go back there. I put the person in charge of all the development of that project when he was a Jewish person and never went to that country. He developed it, and the relationship was very good, and they managed it very well. What did I send over there? All the American, my son and everybody over there, but not the guy that developed it, because it was not a place for him to be.
Great, great. Fantastic story. I love that. I love the part with the bathroom, and I'm not going to cover my hair. I love that. So, great advice, great story. I know a lot of you in the audience are younger professionals looking to become leaders one day, looking to perhaps change fields, looking to perhaps become entrepreneurs. And Goli has so much experience doing all of those things. So I wanted to ask your advice, or what advice you would give to our audience in terms of, you know, if they're starting out in the field that you've mastered, if they're a young professional, what are some key words of wisdom to share with them?
Thank you, first of all, for that question, Shabnam John. You know, I actually spent some time thinking about this, trying to put a list together, and then what I found really interesting was listening to Anusha this morning and then to my panelists right now. It seems like everybody sort of thinks along the same lines. So I think the first thing I would say is that we should never do just a job that's assigned to us. We should always do more. We should always try to do somebody else's job too. I usually never take no for an answer. So being perseverant, I think, is really critical as well. I think being civil and respectful of other people and treating them the way we want to be treated, obviously, is really important. And then building a network and guarding it as if it's our most prized possession. I think nothing speaks louder for our abilities to succeed than a good network. And then, of course, last but not least, and the only reason why I say it last is that I think we have to do all these four before we can get to the last one, is to try to rise up and bring up other women around us when we're in the workplace.
Great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And my last question for Satara John, you know, you talked about the fast-paced news environment and how that's constantly changing. I want to know from your perspective how you keep on top of that.
Well, I have to admit it's not easy. We are in the United States, we are in a 24/7 news cycle. You add the time difference that we have with Iran, which is 8.5 hours because we broadcast in Persian. And on top of that, if you consider the magnificent news-generating machines in Asia and Europe, we also have to compete with them. So I think you agree with me if I say that we are in an age and an era of information overload. So at any given time, you have to juggle and you have to be on top of a news item that has 12, 15, 16, 20 different times it's updated. So it makes it very difficult. So, and we multitask, obviously, all of us. That's what we need to do. Sometimes I think the effort is vain because there is so much, this barrage of news and information coming to us. But I think for us, I don't think the best way is to chase the news that is flowing towards us. But the best strategy for us is to filter the information that's coming to us. When I first became the head of the VOA Persian, I gathered my team and we discussed and we agreed that we will look at information and news and see what is more relevant, what is more important, and we will put quality ahead of quantity. And that's what we've been doing. And we're broadcasting the news that has more impact on our audiences. By the way, I just wanted to mention this word information overload that was popularized by a book, A Future Shock, by Alvin Toffler. That was 45 years ago. So we are still in the era and in the age of information overload. So having a robust and a very clear, I guess, filtering strategy is critical to our business.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, because then you're also creating a brand that people can trust with a news source that is highly curated and specific to what
Absolutely,
the audience
to
is
the
looking
audience,
for.
yes.
That makes a lot of
Yes.
sense. Speaking of information overload, I'm being given the cane, and I'm going to get pulled off stage any minute now. Is there Q&A for this session? There's no Q&A. Okay, so I have to wrap up. And again, I wanted to thank my esteemed panelists for doing this wonderful session with us today. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to leave you with 5 key takeaways. Get your pens out. I was part of an Ernst & Young Winning Women program, and Ernst & Young has done lots of studies on women businesses and women entrepreneurs and leaders. And there are serious problems. We were talking earlier about the culture of women and how that gets passed on. So in order to combat that, I'm leaving you with 5 things to think about. So the first one is think big and be bold. This means changing our culture to believing that we belong here, that we're aware, that we're good at what we do, and we continue to provide role models for the younger generation. Number 2 is build a public profile. So modesty is counterproductive, especially in the Iranian culture, I have to say. We have this thing where we're modest, and that doesn't do you any good. Get out there, build a public profile, don't be afraid of it. Number 3, and this is for entrepreneurs specifically, work on your business rather than in your business. I know I'm guilty of this, and it's very difficult to stay on top of it. But remember that you're at the top, you're the leader, you're at the helm. So get other people to do in the business, and you work on the business. Number 4 is establish key advisory networks. These are boards of directors and advisory boards that will help you be more productive. There'll be support systems, and ideally across a diverse group of age, race, ethnicity, and range of experience in the industries that they're coming from. And number 5, this is the one where women fail the most is evaluating your financing options. So making sure that you can have access to capital and access to great networks that will help you build your business and take it to the next level. So I leave you with those 5 key ideas. I hope they were helpful. Wanted to thank my panelists again for being with us today, and thank you all again. Enjoy the day.
Good to see you.